Welcome to the opening plenary session for this, the 2020 conference of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. We start our conference themed A Path Toward Equity and Sustainable Change with the national anthem followed by Lift Every Voice and Sing, performed by the Stanford Talisman Alumni Virtual Choir.
Civil rights activist James Weldon Johnson wrote Lift Every Voice and Sing as a poem, which was set to music by his brother John Roseman Johnson in 1899. The song is now known as the Black National Anthem in America. It is a protest, a hymn, and a prayer of profound significance for our people. We lift every voice and sing to express ourselves. We lift every voice to show that we have strength in numbers and we will not be silent. We lift every voice and sing to be lifted, liberated, and free.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the roaring sea. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. tears has been watered. We have come, treading our path through the blood of the slaughter. Out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our
Noble members, please join us in a moment of silence in honor of officers who have paid the ultimate sacrifice, men, women, and children who have lost their lives due to incidents of civil unrest and brutality, those who have perished due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and of course, our recently departed civil rights icons, Reverend Joseph Lowry, Reverend Dr. C.T. Vivian, and Congressman John Lewis. Thank you. First up, we'll hear from our own national president, Durham, North Carolina Police Chief Cerelyn C.J. Davis. A board of directors member of the International Association of Chiefs, Davis has more than 32 years of dedicated service in the law enforcement profession. As Noble President, she successfully advanced our strategic plan in the areas of criminal justice reform, community engagement initiatives, and gun control, all while serving in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic and as the demand for social justice in this country grew from a whisper to a battle cry. Ladies and gentlemen, here now to bring greetings, the 42nd National President of Noble, Chief Cerelyn C.J. Davis.
Greetings, members and guests here in the United States and internationally. On behalf of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, welcome to our virtual 44th Annual Training Conference and Exhibition. We are elated that you have accepted the invitation to participate in what is certain to be an amazing virtual training experience. Yes, this is the first time in the history of Noble that we have hosted an event of this magnitude, reaching attendees from around the globe while in the comfort of your own homes. Our conference organizing team has worked several months to ensure that you receive top-notch presentations by subject matter experts who represent multiple disciplines. They have arranged engaging panel discussions featuring some of the nation's leaders in the criminal justice arena to facilitate critical conversations related to community trust building, racial equity, police reform, and the overarching effects of the coronavirus on communities of color. We believe that through this amazing training program, together, we will discover pathways towards healing our nation and innovations to facilitate much-needed police reform. Though we will not be sitting in the same room, please don't let that be a barrier. We need your input, engagement, and feedback throughout this event. Thank you again for attending, but most importantly, thank you for your unwavering support of Noble.
The National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, or Noble, was founded in 1976 to address crime in low-income areas and has since blossomed into an arm of consciousness, guidance, and strategy for both law enforcement personnel and the communities they serve across the United States.
Our mission is to ensure justice by action. And we're constantly talking about what it looks like to impact change. Change comes when you actually work in a community, build relationships. It's more than lip service.
Our mantra is just that we're committed to be the conscience of law enforcement, make sure there's equitable treatment, to make sure that everybody has the same rights.
I don't think in '76 they ever dreamed that half the major cities will be led by Noble members. Or I dream that you've got, all these, approximately 18,000 agencies and having nearly 4,000 members of Noble and having the kind of influence we have.
So when civil unrest, born through incidents of blatant police brutality against Black men, women, and children erupted across the country, Noble members stood ready to protect, serve, and represent the very communities they've remained dedicated to upholding.
I just wanna live. I just wanna live.
I think every law enforcement I'm aware of, the larger national ones, have communicated some condemnation of the death of Mr. Floyd. But saying it is one thing, the actions. And as we say at Noble, justice by action, we as a profession, in my humble opinion, have got to take the action to lead the efforts.
Immediately following the death of George Floyd, Noble stepped up, as it has for nearly 45 years, to address the urgency of policy change in all agencies with the release of the first 4, mandating de-escalation training, prohibiting specific blood or air restrictive restraint maneuvers, requiring officers to render medical aid, and intervene when their colleagues apply unnecessary force.
I am cautiously optimistic that the cries of our America will be heard and acted upon so that once and for all, Black lives are valued in the eyes of all police officers as more than a counterfeit $20 bill, more than a carton of cigarettes, and more important than simply showing up at the wrong address.
We can acknowledge the hurt and be that voice to speak for it, because nobody can understand your pain unless they have experienced your pain. And so even more so with us being a unified force and us having that platform that we can represent our communities and working for the betterment, just so all of law enforcement can function better.
From C-SPAN to Good Morning America, international media to local headlines, Noble members are uniquely positioned to speak on behalf of both people of color and law enforcement during this moment of history when this country arguably needs it most.
We understand we can walk both sides of it, because once we take these uniforms off, once we put that badge down for the night, I'm a human being. And if I walked out of my door and nobody knew what my occupation was, then I'm their community.
The emotions and feelings that we see expressed out on the streets of cities all across the country are felt in a way that are substantiated. There have been years and years of systemic racism in law enforcement, and for many years, Noble has been on the forefront of those conversations to try to impact change.
Noble has been on the forefront, and so that's why we've continued our partnership all of these years.
You were in the Obama administration on this issue. Can you describe what sort of game plan, playbook you sort of, created to try to change what's going on in some police departments?
In March of 2015, we delivered to President Obama at that time a document entitled 21st Century Task Force Report that had 6 pillars and over 60 or 70 recommendations that we had collected not from ourselves, but from people across the country. And then inside there were ideals, recommendations that could help build and bridge relationships that would ensure trust and legitimacy, that would ensure transparency. And by the way, body-worn cameras was born out of that document.
National policy to local programming, Noble's reach stretches into the halls of stations for enhanced officer training, all the way into neighborhoods, encouraging direct community engagement.
We went through the phase of cultural diversity, and now we're in implicit bias, and it's almost like you're always trying to teach me how to be around other people. You're trying to teach me how to intersect with others who don't look like me. But it's important. We all live together.
Hold your law enforcement accountable. Hold your government accountable. We've taken on these roles. We have a responsibility to do right by the community.
From launching the CARES program to aid officers across the country in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, to addressing its unexpected impact in homes across the globe. The 4,000 plus executives of Noble remain united in the mission to effectively secure a just and equal society for officers wearing the badge, as well as for the communities they serve.
I expect Noble chapters all over the country to continue to be the voice in their communities, to support legislative change in the local and state and federal levels. So I expect Noble to be very engaged as the voice and the conscience of law enforcement.
We started out as the conscience of law enforcement by being justice by action, because in the 1970s, when Noble was founded, where were we in our country? Pretty much where we are now, right? And so those problems still exist. So we realize there's strength in unity. And so Noble is that collaborative voice to call out those injustices, to stand for what's right.
Next, we'll have greetings from FBI Director Christopher Wray, followed by Phil Keith, Director of Community-Oriented Policing Services, or COPS. But first, here now to bring welcome remarks to the 2020 conference of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, or NOBLE, is the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee, Vice President Joe Biden.
Hello, Noble. It's good to be back with you. You've been with me my whole career. I'm honored to join you again today, though it's during one of the most challenging periods of our lifetimes. A period that demands leadership and courage to fight the pandemic, even as it makes your job even more dangerous. The courage you use to navigate this economic crisis that saps hope from our people and our communities. And the courage to deal with the racial injustice that still plagues this country. Today, our country is at a crossroads, and you all know it better than anyone. Because I know you. But we have a tremendous opportunity to face down the structural racism across society, including that which exists in policing, and to change the culture and press real reform that honors the vast majority of officers who do the right thing, risk their lives for us every day. And Noble is leading the way as it has before. Over the years, we worked together for more community policing, a national use of force standard, for a national database on to track police misconduct. There's so much more we have to do together, and we can do it now. You know, you're hearing a lot about defunding police. Let me be clear. The only candidate in this race that wants to defund the police is Donald Trump. He's the one whose budget, and check it out, calls for cutting police funding for local law enforcement by almost $500 million. He's the one refusing to fund the cities and states to support your agencies. He's the one who's ignored the 21st Century Policing Report to reimagine policing today. We also know that it rebuilt trust between the police and our communities, especially black and brown communities. Look, I believe that we should condition federal funding on police departments enacting meaningful reforms you already support, to train officers, expand programs that we know work. For example, I'll invest $300 million in community-oriented policing. You know how important that is as a step out of your cruisers and be among the people, to build bonds and to build trust. Another example is we also need our police rank in leadership to reflect the diversity of the community they serve. Nobody knows that, again, better than you. We can do this and so much more because police reform is one part of the broader racial equity agenda I have for this country. I'm going to make sure we invest in schools, summer programs, housing, boys and girls clubs, healthcare centers, mental health services, jobs and economic opportunity, so you can focus on keeping communities safe for everybody. It won't be easy. We can get this done together. We've done more before. I want to thank you for what you do every day. I want to thank your families. I really want to thank your families. Every time you put that shield on and you go out in the morning, every family member always wonders if they're going to get that call. Get that call. And too many have gotten that call. I want to thank you for what you do for our communities and for our country. And I want to make sure that we continue to work together. Because you know, whether you're with me or you endorse me or not, I'm with you. God bless you all. May God protect your families.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Wray, Director of the FBI, and I'm honored to be a part of Noble's annual training conference. I am sorry we couldn't all be together in Cleveland as originally planned, but I'm grateful for this chance to share some thoughts with you virtually. I know it's not easy to be in law enforcement right now. On the one hand, tons of people are angry, and rightfully so, about George Floyd's death, about Breonna Taylor's death, and about so many similar incidents over the years. Incidents where citizens were unjustifiably killed or had their rights violated by some of the very people entrusted with their protection. But on the other hand, unfortunately, many of those who are angry also seem to want to paint all of law enforcement with the same broad brush of bigotry and discrimination, the same broad brush of abuse of power. And we all know that's not right or fair either. We do need to take a hard look at policing in this country and how we can make it better. And that's happening now. And I expect this is going to continue to be a focus of our national conversation over the coming months, and Noble is a key voice in that conversation. Just the other week, your president, Chief Davis, and I had a conversation about these issues. More on that in a moment. But first, I want you to know how incredibly proud I am to be serving alongside you. In the past few months, we've seen a lot of challenges: civil unrest, a global pandemic, and in some places, a surge in violent crime. And I want you to know that the FBI stands ready to help you and your departments with whatever support you need. Our country asks all of us to strike a difficult balance, to preserve the constitutional rights of all citizens while protecting the safety of our communities. As I've said before, one need not and must not come at the expense of the other. Our citizens entrust us with this sacred duty, and we've got to serve as careful but determined stewards of that trust. And we've got to make it clear to the citizens we serve that all of us in law enforcement really are listening. Because you and I know we simply cannot do our jobs without the trust of the American people. Now, as I've also said before, and I don't think this gets said nearly enough in this country, it takes an incredibly special person to willingly put his or her life on the line for a complete stranger. And to get up and do that for a living, day after day after day, is extraordinary and something we should never take for granted. So in these turbulent times, we cannot and will not forget the bravery of our law enforcement partners who have risked life and safety to protect the public and keep the peace. But the sheer difficulty of that job doesn't diminish the role we play in society, which is to protect and serve all citizens, no matter their race, creed, gender, orientation, or station in life. As law enforcement, we're bound by an oath to serve all members of our community with equal compassion, professionalism, dignity, and respect. That's what I think the American people, all the American people, both expect and deserve from us. That's also why the strong partnership between the FBI and Noble is more important these days than ever, because we both have a role to play in helping law enforcement emerge from this difficult chapter better and stronger. When it comes to these complex issues of race and law enforcement, I do think the FBI has a unique perspective to contribute. It's a perspective informed by our work on civil rights and color of law cases, work that's been at the heart of the FBI's mission since the days of the civil rights movement. But it's a perspective that's also informed by our knowledge of the mistakes we've made and learned from on this front throughout the Bureau's history. And it's informed by the challenges the FBI continues to face as we work hard to build a more diverse workforce, including in our leadership ranks, so the Bureau can better reflect all the communities we serve. But for all the good the FBI can do on these issues, Noble's members can offer something even more crucial. It's undeniable that despite the selfless service of countless good officers across the country, in some American communities, people view the police not as allies, but as antagonists, and think of them not with respect or gratitude, but with suspicion and distrust. We need to help these communities see us in law enforcement more clearly. It's also undeniable that we in law enforcement need to see these communities more clearly and listen to their concerns more closely so we can serve them better. And that's where you, the members of Noble, can play a vital role. Each of you is uniquely qualified to advance this process of seeing better by serving as, in effect, a human bridge between these two sides. So today, I'm asking you to keep driving this conversation forward in your departments and in your communities. In closing, let me just say how grateful I am to each of you for your leadership and your service, and to Noble as a whole for all the ways you help the FBI. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, and have a great conference.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to provide you some updates on the work we're doing at the COPS office and at the Department of Justice. I know that we all wish we were having these discussions in person, but the ongoing challenges of COVID-19 has required us all to make adjustments to our traditional business practices. I commend you for adjusting to our new environment and hosting this conference virtually on a function as critical as training. I'm pleased to report that the COPS office has been able to continue our mission in a virtual environment. Regarding our grant work, we recently announced early this month $400 million in funding to hire more than 2,700 additional officers and deputies, and over $2 million in funding for innovation in community policing projects. And there are more COPS office grants announcements coming in the near future. We're also continuing to provide training and technical assistance to requesting agencies, and as always, we have a host of online resources and no-cost publications on our website. I'm grateful to Noble for the assistance and input you continue to provide the COPS office as we support law enforcement across this country. One particular area of appreciation is Noble's contribution to the President's Commission on Law Enforcement and the Administration of Justice. As you may know, I was honored to be named chair of the commission, and Noble has been a valuable partner at all stages of the commission's work. In fact, I can say that your voice has helped shape the commission's work, starting with the invaluable perspective of Chief Davis and Executive Director Dwayne Crawford, and importantly, continuing through Chief Gina Hawkins, who, as you know, is one of our esteemed commissioners. Every Noble member who your leadership submitted for consideration and inclusion in our work, and who was able to secure a proxy from their chief elected official, was invited to participate in the working groups. We also appreciate the written statements that was submitted and provided by a state Noble chapter leader. In addition to Noble's representatives participating in the working groups, Noble members were invited as subject matter experts to discuss a variety of topics, including the Law in Your Community project, which has received multiple awards from the COPS office since 2016. We're on track to deliver a report to the Attorney General and the President this fall. A significant issue the Commission is addressing is the issue of respect for the work you and law enforcement do across this country, and especially respect for the rule of law. This is a critical item in the executive order that created the Commission, and we're at a pivotal moment for our nation and for law enforcement, one that requires us to work together toward common solutions. In terms of protests that have erupted across this country, Attorney General Barr recently said that voices of peaceful and legitimate protests have been hijacked by violent radical elements. Groups of outside radicals and agitators are exploiting this situation to pursue their own separate, violent, and extremist agenda. He went on to say that we cannot allow lawlessness and violence to continue, and to echo the words precisely, he said that these actions undercut the urgent work that needs to be done through constructive engagement between affected communities and law enforcement leaders to address legitimate grievances. Tragic events such as the killing of George Floyd continue to shock the conscience of all of us and have led to many peaceful protests and demonstrations across our nation. In some instances, there have been a backlash against law enforcement personnel who routinely risk their lives, whether it be in times of peace, pandemic, or civil unrest, to rightfully protect and serve the community. Any attack on law enforcement is unwarranted and unjustified. Preliminary data we have for the first half of 2020 is startling to me and will shock your conscience. 162 officers shot or killed in the line of duty. 105 were killed, 205 were injured. 7 victims were ambushed, and through premeditation, their lives were taken. These are unprecedented times in our great country. As Americans, we all value the First Amendment rights, including the right to protest. Also, as Americans, we value the rule of law, and we know that attacks on law enforcement and destruction of property are not constructive to dialogue and change that needs to take place. The Department of Justice is committed to promoting the rule of law, ensuring public safety and equal justice for all, as well as preventing unwarranted attacks on law enforcement personnel who do so much to protect us all. Before I close, I want to tell you about a new national collaborative initiative at the Department of Justice and request your assistance. This initiative, referred as DEEP, which stands for Disruption and Early Engagement Programs, aims to disrupt rapidly mobilizing threats of targeted violence, including mass shootings, domestic and international terrorism. We know that law enforcement can often disrupt such threats through criminal charges, arrest, and prosecution. But we also know that if the available evidence does not support charges or not sufficient to deter the threat, we need other mitigation options. Law enforcement and prosecutors need to work collaboratively with the threat assessment experts at the FBI, with the health professionals and community members to engage the subject and mitigate the threat. Disruption and early engagement programs leverage the expertise of these networks to develop individualized threat assessment and mitigation plans to curb threats of violence, whether through intervention, family involvement, and/or community and professional support services. We know that state and local law enforcement are critical partners in this work, and as many have already spearheaded similar disruptive and early engagement efforts at the field level. We also ask that you contact your local FBI and United States Attorney offices to become more familiar and involved with this collaborative effort. These are just some of the things we're working on at the Department of Justice, and on behalf of the Attorney General and the entire COPS office. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to address you today. The COPS office looks forward to working continuously with you in a productive and rewarding partnership with Noble that we've enjoyed for many years. I hope that you have a wonderful conference, and please be safe.
Although our conference is virtual, our next speakers will bring greetings on behalf of this year's host city, Cleveland, Ohio. Here now are Calvin Williams, Chief of Police for the Cleveland Police Department, and Carolyn Williams, Director of Law Enforcement at the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland and our Noble Cleveland Committee Chair.
Greetings, Noble family. My name is Carolyn Williams, and I am the Director of Law Enforcement for the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland. I want to bring you greetings on behalf of the Greater Cleveland Chapter Conference Planning Committee and the 2020 Virtual Planning Committee. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the 2020 Noble Virtual Conference. We're making history today, Noble. Although our plans in Cleveland were to welcome you from the moment you stepped off the plane, train, or your vehicle with warm hospitality and a cold beverage, this virtual platform is in the best interest of us all at this time. The theme for the 2020 conference is Noble and 21st Century Policing, a path towards equity and sustainable change. Any title with equity and sustainable change means it's Noble time. Members have always been on the front line of change, and once again, it's time for us, to take our rightful place at the executive table in our leadership roles to ensure change is sustainable in the administration of justice. It's time to demonstrate our motto, justice by action. Once again, I want to welcome you to our virtual conference, and we look forward to spending time with you this week.
Hello, Noble family. I'm Chief Calvin Williams of the City of Cleveland. On behalf of Noble Greater Cleveland, the City of Cleveland, and Mayor Frank Jackson, I want to welcome you to the 2020 virtual Noble Conference. As you know, a little thing called COVID-19 has not allowed us to be here in Cleveland in person. So this virtual conference will have to do for this year. But we know there are years ahead when we'll get back together in fellowship and camaraderie and make those conferences great. I want people to understand that just because this is a virtual conference, it's still interactive. We still have to participate to make sure this learning experience is the best that it can be. On behalf of Noble Greater Cleveland, the City of Cleveland, our Noble Board, I want to welcome you to this 2020 virtual conference. I want you all to be safe, be healthy. God bless. We'll see you at the conference.
Today I get to present to you the Eric Holder Leadership Award recipient for 2020. Chief Calvin Williams was appointed Chief of Police for the Cleveland Division of Police in 2014. He's a lifelong resident of the city of Cleveland. He's a graduate of Cleveland State University and holds a bachelor's degree in public safety management. He grew up in Cleveland. He still resides in the community in which he started his life. That community is the Huff neighborhood. Google that. It will give you some insight. On a personal level, Chief Williams is an avid sports fan and supports the hometown teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers and Cleveland Browns. He also enjoys the game of golf in his rare free time. Chief Williams volunteers in various ways. Among his favorite is as coach for the Cleveland Muni Football League Sims Raiders, working with children ages 6 to 14. Chief Williams gained national attention in 2016 when the city of Cleveland hosted the Republican National Convention. It was reported that Chief Williams commanded approximately 3,000 police officers from multi-agencies to keep attendees in the city of Cleveland safe. A Fox 8 news story covered Williams himself in the midst of massive crowds weaving in and out of traffic on a police-issued bicycle. Despite initial fears by some, the near week-long event took place without significant incident. Several national news outlets praised Chief Williams for his superior leadership during that Republican National Convention. In the same year, Chief Williams oversaw the 2016 NBA Championship Victory Parade for the Cleveland Cavaliers, which attracted an unprecedented 1.3 million people. Under the leadership of Chief Williams, the Cleveland Division of Police is meeting and exceeding the metrics set forth in its consent decree with the U.S. Department of Justice. The city has continued to see a reduction in crime and fewer incidents of use of force. Coincidentally, the consent decree arose in 2014 following a report by award namesake Attorney General Eric Holder, the same year the chief was appointed as the police chief. Chief Williams is well respected in Cleveland and the surrounding communities, and it's primarily because he has a demeanor to be able to communicate with anyone. And that's a known trait that he has here in Cleveland. He is very pragmatic and very cool and collected when it comes to dealing with people. We love Chief Williams here in Cleveland, Ohio, and it is my pleasure to present to you the Eric Holder Attorney General Leadership Award to Chief Calvin Williams.
Thank you, Carolyn. I would be remiss if I didn't start with a hearty thank you to our 2019 award recipient, Carolyn Williams. You know, it's Carolyn that resurrected the Noble chapter here in Cleveland. And not for her, when she came here over 8 years ago, you know, I wouldn't be in line for this award. You know, Carolyn's my road dog. We've been to a lot of places together and talked about policing on all levels. So I want to thank Carolyn for this. I want to thank Noble National, the selection committee, as well as all the other folks involved in this. This award is a true honor. I met Attorney General Eric Holder, not under the best of circumstances, back in 2014, but he was a gentleman, a scholar, and a person dedicated to making the lives of folks in this country better. And he was a hero of mine. So this award means a lot. You know, it means a lot for me to receive something named in his honor. And I'm going to cherish this forever. I want to thank our Noble chapter here in Cleveland, our Greater Cleveland chapter. You know, everything we do here in Cleveland, we try to do as a partnership. And this isn't an award for Chief William. This is an award for the city of Cleveland, our Noble Greater Cleveland chapter, and everybody else here that makes the things we do possible. I also want to thank, you know, Mayor Frank Jackson, who had the trust in me those over 6 years ago to appoint me as chief and has supported me ever since. I have to thank the members of my family who support me day in and day out, and the people in this community. Cleveland's a great community, contrary to what you may hear sometimes. Cleveland's a great community to grow up in. It's a great community to work in, and the people genuinely care about this city. Carolyn mentioned I'm an avid sports guy, as you can see by my background here in my man cave. You know, I'm a diehard Browns fan, and hopefully we'll get to do what we did in 2016 with the Cavaliers and a victory parade for a championship we'll do with the Browns here sometime before, you know, I'm old and grayer than I am now. But on a serious note, this is one of the most prestigious awards I've ever received. I can't say enough about, you know, the confidence that you guys have bestowed upon me, and I hope I do you proud. Thank you, Noble. Thank you, my Noble family here in Cleveland and around the country. I love you guys, and hopefully after this COVID thing is done, I'll be able to thank you personally. So thank you, Noble. God bless. I love you guys. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Now, we can't effectively protect and serve during a time such as this without addressing the future leaders of this country. Here now to tell us more is the Noble Youth Committee Chair, Rhonda Glover Reese.
Greetings, Noble family and guests. My name is Rhonda Glover Reese, and I serve as the Noble Youth Committee Chairperson. On behalf of the Noble Youth Committee and Noble Youth leaders, we look forward to contributing to the transformation of our youth. As we embark on this unprecedented 2020 Noble Youth Leadership Conference in a manner not experienced in our 44-year Noble history, we are determined to bring a high level of professional acumen and passion to our youth leaders as we adapt and persevere through the enormous challenges we are facing during this global pandemic. We look forward to engaging in spirited dialogue and continue to water the seeds of our youth as we forge a new future. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the midst of an equality movement that has never been experienced by our youth. And it is upon this tsunami of change that we, Noble, must demonstrate to our youth and all who witness our efforts that we are for and about equality and access in these United States of America. Noble, we are investing in the future of youth. Have a great conference.
As we close this session, we say thank you to our sponsors, Axon, Niche Technologies, and Truist Financial. Thank you for watching. We'll see you at the next session.